Coming next on AM Live, want to lose weight but getting frustrated with diets and exercise that don't seem to work? An expert helps to separate facts from myth about weight loss. Straight ahead. Welcome back. Do you find it hard to lose weight?
Well, I don't think I need to lose weight, but sometimes I find it hard to keep trim and fit.
I think honestly she really doesn't need to lose any weight. Anyway, the problem is there are so many ideas out there. It's difficult to separate fact from myth.
Yeah, you know, there's always wondered if low-carb diets actually work, or whether we should avoid eating at night, or if genetics plays a part.
Well, to debunk some of the popular myths about weight loss, we have with us Dr. Gary Jackson, an alternative medical practitioner.
And he joins us this morning. Good morning. Thank you for joining us. So, why is it that some people find it so hard to lose weight even though they think that they eat right and they exercise fairly regularly?
That's a very common problem with people, and I think that the issue boils down to whilst they think they're eating right, they're not actually eating correctly. And it comes down to the balance of foods and how they eat, the balance of protein to carbohydrates. Mm-hmm. The other thing that people will do is they'll exercise and then bulk up with carbs, so they're actually defeating the purpose. And the other thing, when you exercise, you're also building muscle, which is heavier than fat. So you're actually counterproductive when you do that kind of thing. And there's also some people who don't actually have a lot of fat to lose, but they're quite muscular, so they're not going to lose a lot of weight anyway.
All right.
So what about low-carb diets? Are they, a myth, or do they really work?
Low-carb diets will work because you're cutting down the amount of sugar that's going in. When we talk about carbs, there are actually two types of carbohydrates. The simple carbohydrates, which is your grains, rice, pasta, that kind of thing. And then you've got your complex carbohydrates, which is the vegetables. We normally refer to carbs as being the grainy type stuff and the pastas and so on. They're full of sugar, so when you eat those, they convert to sugar, and the sugar converts to fat. So if you take that out of someone's diet, then, yeah, sure, you'll lose weight. The problem comes is that people will lose the weight on the low-carb diet and then go back to their old habits and put it back on again.
Well, some people say it's not about what foods you eat. You can eat anything you want. It's about the amount of calories that you consume.
Correct.
Is that correct?
Correct. There are varying views on that, but the basic philosophy behind that is correct. And with our programs, what we do is we don't change what you're eating to any great degree. We cut out things like deep fried foods, fatty foods, but we're still eating
all the nice things.
Yeah. But we're still allowing you to eat what you want to eat, so you don't have to give up McDonald's burgers if you don't want to, but you don't have them every day. You might have them once a week.
Well, then what about some bad habits? Like, some people say that if you eat before you sleep, you're definitely going to put on weight. Is that correct?
Yeah. When you eat food, it goes into the stomach and into the intestines, and it needs to break down. So if you have your meal, say, less than an hour before you go to sleep, your digestive system will slow down, so the ability for it to break down the foods into the necessary molecules slows down. And as a result of that, sleeping, you're also not using as much energy, so the body just stores it as excess fat. So you really need to have your meal about 2 to 3 hours before you go to bed.
Well, here's another one we always talk about, genetics. I mean, how big a part does it play? And these so-called big bone types, are they just more prone to obesity?
There's actually two points that you're asking there. The first is the genetics. I follow the belief that was put together by Bruce Lipton, which is a concept called epigenetics. And that's, in layman's terms, that's about genetics. Bruce came up with the theories when he was at Stanford and Harvard universities that maybe 5% of the population do actually have a genetic defect. The rest have a predisposition. So whilst you might have a predisposition to put on weight, unless there's an environmental stimulus that causes that, then you won't. Okay. The second part of the question is the big bone people. Absolutely. And if you look at Caucasian males in America, they're physically bigger than Caucasians in the Asian regions. So if you look at the way that we used to look at weight, which is through the body mass index, or BMI, in 2007, I think it was, the World Health Organization realized that the Asian populations were actually becoming obese because they were using Caucasian BMI figures instead of Asian BMI figures. So since that time, there's been some modifications in terms of looking at the BMI. Okay. But we don't actually use BMI. We look at physical structure, and we've broken that down into 12 different categories. And based on that category, we can determine what your bone densities or bone structure is going to be like, and then we can work out how heavy you should be.
There's this recent trend that I read about. It's called the DNA diet, where they take some blood tests and then they tailor a diet around someone's DNA. Is there any truth to that?
There's a lot of blood type diets around. The most famous ones was the Eat Right for Your Type program. DNA itself doesn't have any bearing on whether you're going to get fat or not. DNA is simply like the blueprint for your house. You may have the genetic code that says you'll get breast cancer or lung cancer, or you might have genetic code that says you're going to become obese, but there has to be something that triggers the building of the house. So whilst you may have a genetic predisposition, it's not necessarily going to be a genetic problem unless environmental stimulus comes along. Okay. And the best way I can explain that is if you remember back in the 1800s, 1700s, people used to go to sea and get scurvy. Right. And it was said to be genetic because dad got it, son got it, so forth. Came to be a vitamin C deficiency. So that's how we kind of explain that.
Now here's what I wanted to ask you about. You said earlier that even healthy foods can supposedly make us gain weight. I mean, are there particular supposed healthy foods that are deceiving?
It boils down to how the foods are produced. So if we take beef, for example, the current trend with beef is to go for the heavily marbled fat beef. Fat's fat, and it's saturated fat. If you go for the grass-fed beef and even lamb, it's less marbled with the beef, with fat. So then if you think about what's actually inside the beef, there's a compound called conjugated linoleic acid, or CLA. It's a supplement that you can buy for weight loss. If you eat grass-fed beef, it's got 4 times more conjugated linoleic acid than grain-fed. So grain-fed is going to help you put weight on, grass-fed is going to help you take it off.
All right, so you just need to be aware of what you're putting into your body.
Absolutely.
And what about exercise? Can too much be not so good for you sometimes?
I believe it can be, and I do that on the basis of, if we look at the way our hormones are fluctuating in the body, whenever you put the body under physical or mental stress, a hormone called cortisol is released. Cortisol is known as the fat hormone. It causes the body to store fat rather than use it, plus a whole lot of other things that it plays around with. So if you over-exercise, you're actually physically stressing the body to a point where it starts to release cortisol. And particularly in some athletes, you'll find that when they're in their peak performance, they're actually quite lean. But the minute they stop their exercise, they go bang.
Right.
We know plenty of those. Anyway, that's giving me the perfect excuse not to bother doing any exercise anymore. But dietary supplements as well, which are very popular here. There's certain types that make you gain weight apparently.
There's a couple in terms of things like the diet sodas and so on, with compounds like aspartame, which not only can cause cancer, but they can also cause your body to gain weight. The main thing to think about in this arena is how the food was produced. And if it comes out of, my favourite saying, if it comes out of a cardboard box, it's not real food. For me, it was either walking, flying, swimming, or growing before I ate it.
So you've come up with an alternative approach to weight loss. So how does yours differ from all the other diets out there?
Weight loss is actually a side effect of changing your lifestyle. So the program was originally developed around healthy lifestyle practices. Right. And when people start healthy lifestyle practices, their body starts to rebalance itself. So we look at what you eat, we look at the combinations of the foods that you eat. So, for example, the surf and turf, or the beef with prawns, that's a bad thing to do because the two proteins don't like each other. So it's certainly what you eat, what you drink. Most people are dehydrated, so we like to increase the water that you drink. We then look at the amount of exercise that you're doing or not doing, and we do incorporate exercise into our programs. We don't use dietary supplements that help you to lose weight, as you were mentioning a moment ago, and the reason is that they're actually counterproductive to the body's ability to look after itself. But there are certain supplements, for example, a good multivitamin, maybe essential fatty acids, those sorts of things that are required by the body, and you can't get them through diet alone. So we do suggest that sort of supplementation, but we don't get into the appetite suppressant stuff. It's just counterproductive.
So as a general rule, everything in moderation?
Everything in moderation. And then finally, the one that everybody misses is called stress management. So we take people for at least half an hour a day and we get them to relax using an audio program that we've developed. So that's how we approach things. So it's a holistic program. Those people that want to lose weight, those people that want to gain weight, those people that want to maintain a healthy lifestyle.
Right. Thank you very much for sharing your insights. It's great to have you this morning. And that was Dr. Gary Jackson telling us about a weight loss program that he developed. It's called My Weight Guru, and the website is there on your screen if you're interested in finding out more.
But before you start on any weight loss program, please note, it's always a good idea to see your doctor first to check whether it's suitable for you.
That's right. Next on AM Live, we'll